Hi guys at welcome sa susunod na lesson. Pinag-usapan na natin kung ano nga ba yung mga manufacturing cost or materials, labor, tsaka overhead. Ngayon pag-usapan natin paano yung accounting sa mga ito. Unahin natin yung direct materials. Direct materials are materials that are directly traceable to the product. So, sa direct materials, yung unang nangyari is, you buy the materials first. So, bilhin mo muna sila. So, when you buy the wood for your furniture or kung ano, ang entry natin is going to be debit, raw materials inventory, credit, cash, or accounts payable, depende. So, notice na meron tayong special account, raw materials inventory. It is one of the inventory accounts sa manufacturing. Dito mo nilalagay yung mga materyales muna as inventaryo muna before using them. So, pasok muna dyan. Raw materials inventory. Next, kapag nabili mo na, yung next na mangyayari, gagamitin mo na at you're putting it into production. So, ganito, in cost accounting, if you put anything into production, spend anything at mag-start ka na, pumapasok itong lahat ng production cost sa work in process inventory. Another special account. So, if it's raw materials, then babawasan sa mga raw materials and we will now put it into production. It is now work in process, debit, work in process inventory to record the use of the materials in production. So, ganun yung mga entries sa direct materials. Sunod, direct labor. Okay? Direct labor again is labor directly traceable to the product. So, once again, the moment you put something into production, pumapasok siya sa work in process inventory. So, in this case, yung mga laborer mo, mga karpintero, ilalagyan mo na, you spend for them so that they can produce your furniture. So, ang lalabas, the production cost of these laborers, again, papasok sa work in process inventory. So, debit, work in process inventory. And then, credit, as usual for labor, credit, salaries, and wages payable. O ikaw yung tipong diretsong bigay ng cash, edi credit cash, pwede din. That's for direct labor. To record direct labor use in production. Susunod yung accounting for overhead. So, sa accounting for overhead, dahil sa complicated at madami yung overhead, gumagamit tayo at pinapasok natin muna lahat ng overhead cost sa account na debit overhead control. Pinapasok natin siya to dito muna, ilagay mo muna, i-accumulate muna lahat dito temporarily bago papasok sa work in process. Ganun yung practice. So, syempre maraming klase ng overhead, depende na lang. So, to record various indirect costs, kung kunwari indirect labor, overhead yon, so most likely credit mo salaries and wages payable. Indirect materials, pwedeng credit supplies inventory. Kapag depreciation cost of factory equipment, that's also overhead. So, yung credit na accumulated depreciation, credit accumulated depreciation. And whatever is the cost, and itong whatever ito, pumapasok yung cost sa overhead control. Kapag other things, not limited to this. Kung magbayad ako ng kuryente, edi debit overhead control, credit utilities payable. So, pwedeng ganun. Siyempre, kung bayaran ko yung kuryente cash diretso, edi debit overhead control, credit cash. Whatever it is, the overhead costs, papasok muna sa debit overhead control. So, yun yung unang mangyayari. And then, after accumulating it all in overhead control, it is now transferred to production again. Debit work in process, credit overhead control. Papasok na siya sa work in process inventory. There are actually many methods to do this, but the most basic is, at dito tayo mag-start, yung actual overhead ang papasok sa work in process. Yung total, later on, we get to know other methods, but the simplest is, ano talagang actual overhead, yun papasok sa work in process. Okay? So, yun. Napansin mo na ano yung mga pumasok sa work in process? Pumasok yung direct material kanina, pumasok yung labor, at pumasok yung overhead. So, lahat na ngayon nandoon na sa loob ng work in process at pinapagtratrabuhan na para gawing produkto. Now, what if tapos na, no? Nilagay mo na lahat ng gastos at tapos na yung work in process inventory and it's not in process anymore. Kung tapos na, it is considered finished. So, papasok siya sa itong account na to, debit finished goods inventory. Tapos na at tatanggalin na sa credit work in process inventory to record completed goods. So, tapos na yan. Finished goods inventory. And syempre, kapag ibenta mo, it becomes cost of goods sold. So, most likely, ang benta mo, debit cash or debit accounts receivable, credit sales. Tapos, yung inventaryo, magiging cost. So, debit cost of goods sold, credit finished goods inventory. And, yun. Tapos na yung production cycle. Nabenta na siya. So, those are the basic entries for materials, labor, and overhead. Praktisan kaya natin para mas maging mahasa tayo. Okay? Ayan. So, mapapansin mo dito na meron tayong some transactions at gagawin natin itong entry. Okay? So, isa-isayin natin. Purchase 90,000 raw materials on account. So, saan ulit papasok kapag bibili ng raw materials? Debit raw materials inventory. And on account daw, so utang. So, credit accounts payable. 90,000. 90,000. Okay. Next, issued 80,000 direct material to production. So, after buying, issue to production. Again, if it's put into work, then debit work in process inventory. And credit the raw materials inventory. Yung 80,000 na yun. Okay. Ayan. Right? Okay. Next. Paid 4,000 hours of direct labor at 15 per hour. Ito ay direct labor. So, papasok siya sa working process inventory. Yan. Magkano yan lahat? 4,000 hours, 15 isa. That's 60,000 pesos if you multiply that. Credit. Magsabi, paid eh. So, cash diretso. So, credit cash. Yan ay 60,000. Yan. Recorded 10,000 depreciation on factory assets. So, the depreciation enters again into the inventory. Debit work in process inventory and credited to accumulated depreciation. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Yan ay overhead pala. Overhead. Sorry. So, again, this is a type of overhead. And bago papasok sa work in process, dumadaan muna sa overhead control. So, debit overhead control and credit accumulated depreciation, yan ay magiging 10,000. Okay. Paid 5,000 of supervisor salaries. For supervisors, the factory supervisor normally is not traceable to a specific product. So, it counts as overhead. So, debit dadaan muna sa overhead control. Accrued daw. So, salaries payable niya. At yan ay magiging 5,000. Yan. Assign actual overhead to work in process. Ngayon, kompleto na daw yung overhead at i-assign na to work in process. So, debit work in process inventory and credit overhead control. So, yan. Magkano nga yung overhead? That's 10 and 5. So, dalawang overhead lang. Papasok na ngayon sa working process, 15, 15. Ayan. Okay, completed goods costing 150 and transfer them to finished goods. Ayan. So, tapos na daw. 150,000 worth of goods is finished. So, working with that particular number, debit finished goods inventory and credit work in process inventory. And that value is finished. Debit 150, credit 150. There. So, out from work in process to finished goods. Sold 80,000 of the finished goods for 100,000 on account. Unahin muna natin yung sales. So, sold for 100,000 on account, debit, accounts receivable, credit sales. So, 100,000. And then, the cost part, that's 80,000 worth of finished goods. So, goodbye, finished goods, debit, cost of goods sold, and then credit, finished goods inventory. Worth 80,000. There. So, done. That's it. So, those are the basic entries on how to record materials, labor, and overhead. It would be advisable that you practice these things kasi only with practice will you familiarize them and magiging madali na lang para sa'yo. So, yun na lang muna for today. See you sa susunod na video.